Masechet Yevamot, Daf Nun Zayin. We begin on Nun Vav Amud Bet with the Mishnah. The sugya today is going to be dealing with the status of a woman who is only engaged, just kiddushin, to a kohen. Can she eat terumah during that time? We'll see some various complicated cases, but let's review basic cases. If a woman is a bat kohen, then she can eat terumah while she's in her father's house. If she goes and does kiddushin with a kohen, kosher kohen, then she can continue eating terumah throughout the time of kiddushin and certainly into the time of chuppah. That's a simple case. Now, if any of those factors are lacking, then there's going to be a problem. If she grew up as a bat Yisrael, she could not eat terumah, and then if she goes ahead and is engaged and does kiddushin with a kohen, nevertheless during that time period, even though she's basically married to the kohen, she cannot eat terumah because she's still living in her father's house, and so we worry that she'll have terumah there and that it'll get mixed up, and that'll be a problem. Also, if she is a bat kohen and she's marrying a Yisrael, that case is going to come up in the middle. In that case as well, since she's on her way to marry a Yisrael and she's pretty much almost married to him, she has to stop eating terumah during the time of kiddushin. Okay, so the only time she can eat terumah while she is mikudeshet, if she is both a bat kohen and she's marrying a kosher kohen. Now, here's the case of the Mishnah. Almana lekohen gadol gerusha v'chalutza lekohen hediot min ha'erusin lo yochelu betirumah. Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon machshidin. If you have a prohibited relation, almana marrying a kohen gadol, or a divorcee or chalutza, divorcee midoraita, chalutza midivra sofrim, who are marrying a regular kohen. This kohen is a kosher kohen. He's just not allowed to be with a chalutza, and they do kiddushin during that time of period of kiddushin. Tanakama says. We're going to identify Tanakama as Rabbi Meir in a minute. Says cannot have terumah because they are on their way to a prohibited relation. Now, even though technically it's really only the bi'ah, the nisu'in, that's going to make her a chalala permanently, nevertheless, she's awaiting a prohibited relation. So even at this time is prohibited. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon say it's okay. They didn't do bi'ah yet, so she's not yet a chalala. She's not yet a problem in a problematic relationship. It's only kiddushin. And so, in the meantime, she is a bat kohen. She can continue eating terumah. All right, so everyone agrees in that. This is a machloket. The following case is going to have an agreement. Nit armelu o nit gareshu min anisin pesulot min erusin kesherot. If after this couple, someone who was married to divorcee, if she later on becomes widowed, or they divorce, and then she was a bat kohen. So if they had been married, pesulot, once a divorcee marries a kohen, she becomes a chalala forever, even after the death of the husband or the divorce or their divorce. She cannot go back to her father's house. She is now halala. But if they only had kiddushin, then even Rabbi Meir, who was a machmir, in this case, while they're mikudeshet, still agrees that it would only be temporary, because if they never get a chance to fully marry and he dies or they divorce, then she can go back to her father's house and eat terumah. She remains keshera. All right, that is the Mishnah, and now the Gemara will cite a Baraita that will explicate the reasons for each side. Tanya, Amar Rabbi Meir. Here we see Rabbi Meir is the Machmir opinion. Kal v'chomer uma kiddushe reshut en ma'achidin kiddushe avera lo kol sheken. Rabbi Meir says a simple machloket. Kiddushe reshut. That means a bat kohen who marries a permitted relation with a Yisrael, not with a kohen, with a Yisrael. So while she was growing up, she could eat terumah. She does kiddushin with Yisrael, which is permitted. Now she has to stop. So if that's the case, then all the more so when she goes into a prohibited relation by a bat kohen going to doing kiddushin with a kohen to whom she is prohibited. Let's say she's a divorcee. So all the more so because now, if when she's going in kiddushin in a permitted relationship, she has to stop eating terumah. All the more so, kiddushin in a prohibited relationship, well, she would have to stop eating terumah. Good, it makes sense. Amru lo, but the other sages tell him lo. Ima marta bi kiddushay reshut, sheken אין לו להאכיל במקום אחר. תאמר בקידושי עבירה, שכן יש לו להאכיל במקום אחר. No, that comparison is not the same. You said that in the Kiddushay Reshut, yes, we would agree that because אין לו להאכיל במקום אחר. A Yisrael, this is a Bat Kohen who does Kiddushin with Israel. This Israel does not have the power to make anybody eat terumah in any case, right? Yisrael marrying any the best of circumstances he cannot eat terumah himself. He will never be able to allow someone else to eat terumah. So in that case, it makes sense that she will have to stop eating terumah. She's marrying Yisrael, and that's it. It's going to be the end of terumah for her. That is not the same as Kiddushay Avera, sheken yesh lo lachil b'makom acher. In this case, where this divorcee is marrying a Kohen, this Kohen can eat terumah himself, and if he marries a woman who's not a divorcee, he can allow her to eat terumah. So the Kohen right now is perfectly fine. It's just the relationship here, because she's a divorcee, that's the problem. So therefore, our case should be more lenient than that case, and it breaks this kavachomer. It's not true. Just because Israel stops her from eating terumah, that's because he cannot eat terumah ever. But a Kohen can eat terumah, can have others eat terumah if they're not a divorcee, so that should be less of a problem and no kavachomer. Okay. Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Hoshaia. Pesua daka kohen shekedesh bat Yisrael banu lemachloket Rabbi Meir v'Rabbi Elazar v'Rabbi Shimon. Okay, after we saw the two sides of it, we're going to pick up on elements of these two sides. We're going to apply this machloket to a new case. This new case is also a prohibited relation, but not because of a divorcee. It's not her problem now, she's a divorcee, but rather this Kohen is a Petsua Daka, he has crushed testicles. And the Torah in Deva Sefer Devarim says, Lo yavo Petsua Daka uchdut shovcha bikal Hashem. Someone with this mum, anyone, even if he a Yisrael Kohen, anyone like that, cannot marry Kal Hashem, he cannot marry a regular Jew. We're going to see a machloket whether this person can marry a convert or a daughter of a convert. We'll see. We'll see in a minute. Now, before we go on, we have to clarify a girsa issue. In the printed edition, it says Bat Yisrael here, which would mean we're talking about a case of a Kohen who does Kiddushin with the Bat Yisrael, and then the question is whether she can eat terumah or not. But this is a problem because any Kohen, even regular, just forget the Pesua Daka, who does Kiddushin with the Bat Yisrael, cannot yet have terumah. We just said that a minute ago. So if we look at the Girsaot, we will find that Kohen Shekidesh, the printed edition says Bat Yisrael, but several manuscripts have a Bat Kohen here. Bat Kohen, the original might have been just Banu, and then skips it all together. So in the attempt to fill it in, some filled in Bat Kohen's, others Shekideshet Bat Yisrael. In any case, she has a lot of difficulty here. We're going to find a little bit of Hananel, and those manuscripts that do say Bat Kohen. And I think that'll make it a lot clearer, because we're trying to parallel this case of Rabbi Hoshaia and our Mishnah. And that's exactly what we do. We say, Banu l'machloket Rabbi Meir v'Rabbi Elazar v'Rabbi Shimon. So here we have a case that's similar to our Mishnah. In our Mishnah, we had a woman who's a divorcee, and the guy is totally fine, but he cannot marry a divorcee. Here we switch out. She's not a divorcee. She's okay. The problem is that the Kohen, the Besuat Hakahu, cannot marry anybody. And so, same thing. If she's a Bat Kohen, she was able to eat terumah the whole time while she was growing up until now. And all of a sudden, this guy comes up, and he's a Pesua Daka who can't marry anybody, and he does Kiddushin with her, although they did not consummate the marriage with Bi'ah. So what's the status here? So Rabbi Hoshaia says, it will be the same as whatever Rabbi Meir and the other two sages say in our Mishnah. Le Rabbi Meir damar mishtamedet lebi'ah pesula deoraita lo achla. And Rabbi Meir, who said in the Mishnah that a woman who is awaiting a bi'ah that's prohibited to her on a deoraita level, which was the case of the Mishnah regarding Gerusha. It did mention Chalutza also, which is not Doraita level, but still, let's focus on the Gerusha. And she cannot eat because she, even though she is a Bat Kohen and she was able to eat beforehand, she is on her way to be married to this man who's prohibited to her, this prohibited relationship, and therefore, even though it's only Kiddushin, she stops eating Terumah. Haname la'achla, so this would be the same thing. Even though it's only Kiddushin, she's on her way to this prohibited relationship with this Kohen, and therefore has to stop eating terumah, and for sure after the chuppah will not be able to eat terumah again. Ever again. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon Damrei Mishtamet Lebi Apesula Deoraita Achla. On the other hand, according to the lenient two sages in our Mishnah, who say that someone who only has kiddushin, so she's waiting for Bi'a Pesula, but right now the Bi'a Pesula did not come, she didn't do anything wrong, so on Deoraita Achla. Haname achla pesula dorata. If there's no problem in a doraita level, and she can eat, so too here she only has kiddushin with a pesua daka, and so is only awaiting a prohibited relation. She can eat also. Okay, so that's the thesis that the Gemara is presenting, that our Mishnah with the divorcee is parallel to this case of Rabbi Hoshaia with the pesua daka. All right, now we're going to reject this thesis and say, maybe not, but we will resurrect it again, so don't worry. Mimai, dilma ad kan lo kamri Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon hatam ela diyesh lo lachil b'makom acher. Hold on, maybe Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, they are lenient in the case of a divorcee because that Kohen is a perfectly fine Kohen. If he would have instead married a kosher, a woman who is not a divorcee, then he could have continued eating terumah, and he would have allowed her also to eat terumah. So he is totally fine, and that's why in that case we say when he only does kiddushin with this divorcee, still okay because he's totally fine. But in our case, the pesua daka, there is no one who he could marry and allow her to eat terumah, because he can't marry anybody. He's a pesua daka, lo yavo bikal Hashem. And see, since he has the problem, and there's no one else that he could allow to eat terumah, so therefore, the second they do kiddushin, this is a more stringent case, and even the Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon would prohibit it. They would agree with me and prohibit her to eat terumah while they have just kiddushin. Okay, so now we rejected the fact that the thesis that these two cases are parallel. But we're going to reinstate it. We're going to show three possible scenarios where a pesua daka kohen can allow someone else to eat terumah. Case number one. Maybe even though a pesua daka cannot marry a regular Yisrael, a kohen pesua daka can marry the child of converts. This is actually going to be subject to a two-way machloket. We're going to see it in a minute. We can just show it from now. What is the status of a convert marrying a pesua daka? Do we say on the one hand what the Yehuda says, that what's the definition of kahal? So the Yehuda says converts are called kahal. They are fully Jewish for all matters, and therefore a pesua daka cannot marry a regular Jew, cannot marry a born Jew, cannot marry a convert either, because converts are the same as born Jews, are also kahal. That's the stringent. But there is a lenient opinion of Rabbi Yosef, who says that converts are not called kahal. So it denigrates the converts a bit, as to say that even though they're fully Jewish for almost all matters, but, they still have their accent, and still, they are not fully part of the kahal. And so, according to that opinion, since a pesua daka is only prohibited of marrying into kahal, and a convert is not fully part of the kahal, so that he is permitted. So there you go. We have a case where the pesua daka, who is a kohen, can possibly marry a bat gerim. And since the marriage is permitted, therefore she can eat teruma. Okay, so therefore there is a case in there, and that according to that, the Mishnah and the case of Pesua Daka would be parallel. Machloket would be parallel, but we cannot accept this case because this case itself was a question that was asked by Rabbi Yochanan to Rabbi Hoshaia, and Rabbi Hoshaia had no answer to this question. It was so difficult for him to figure out, is there a case where this would be permitted or not? He didn't give an answer to it. So you can't bring this as a proof for anything. Okay, we are going to spend a bunch of time today actually discussing this very question and Rabbi Hoshaia's quandary. But we'll come back to that in a minute. In the meantime, we have a scenario number 2 where a pesua daka can cause someone to eat teruma. Itemad abaye amad ho'il machila belo yeda'aha. If we have a case where a man was healthy and married a woman and they're perfectly fine, he's a kohen, and so she's eating teruma, and one day he gets into an accident and his privates are crushed, and so now but lo yeda'ah, he did not know her in the biblical sense. If they did not have bi'ah yet from the time of the accident and on, then they can continue staying married, and she can continue eating teruma because the prohibition would only be after bi'ah, but they're not having bi'ah. So here you have a case where you have a man who is a pesua daka, and yet he allows, because he's a kohen and she is a bat Yisrael, he allows her to eat teruma. So there we do have a case. And therefore, this pesua daka case is, in fact, parallel to the Mishnah's case. That's Abaye's solution. Rabbi has an alternate solution. Although pesua daka cannot marry, nevertheless, he can own Eved Kanani or Shifcha Kananit. And the law is that not only Kohen, but all of his household, his children, everyone can eat teruma, including his servants. Kananim, who they go through this halfway conversion process, part of his household, they can eat teruma. So that's another case where a Kohen, Pesua Daka, can allow other people to eat the teruma. And therefore, it is equivalent to the case of our Mishnah, where this Kohen is perfectly fine. He could marry a different woman, non-divorcee, and allow her to eat teruma. So too, even though he cannot with this particular divorcee, but the cases are in fact parallel, and whatever you would say about the Mishnah, it would prohibit both, and the other sages would permit both in pesua daka as well. All right, that is the conclusion. We're just going to end with one more point in this regarding this. How come Abaye and Rabbi disagree with each other? Abaye lo amar ke Rabba. Abaye doesn't like Rabba's answer that has to do with slaves. Kinyan di ishut mikinyan di ishut yalfinan. Velo yalfinan kinyan di ishut mikinyan da avadim. I want to compare apples with apples. I want to compare acquiring in the sense of marriage from another case of acquiring in the sense of marriage. And therefore, my case is better, where this Kohen is married and then becomes a pesua daka later, and she can continue eating teruma. This is a marriage case, is more comparable with our marriage case. And don't tell me the acquiring someone from as a slave, that's not in any way similar to acquiring someone as a wife. So you can't compare the fact that this pesua daka can acquire slaves and they eat teruma, and therefore he is someone who can make someone else eat teruma. But you're comparing that to someone who has kiddushin who is going to marry. Okay. And how come Rabbi doesn't like Abaye's case? No, he said, Abaye, in your case, they were married perfectly fine to begin with. And that's why she was able to eat teruma. And therefore, since she was already allowed to eat, she already has momentum from beforehand. He becomes kerut pesua daka in the middle. Okay, still have momentum from the permission before. And that's not similar to our case, where the kerut shavcha is doing kiddushin with her. You can't compare an initial state to a continuing state. Abaye says, no, it makes no difference whether it's continuous or starts right away or starts from new. Because according to that logic, let's say just a regular normal case of a Bat Yisrael who marries a Kohen, so she can eat teruma while they're married. When the Kohen dies, according to you, she should be able to eat because you just said that there's a difference. If she can only eat here because she was already able to eat before. But according to that logic, also someone who's married to a Kohen and he dies should be able to continue because she was able to eat before. Shekavad achala. But no one thinks that. Everyone agrees that once the Kohen husband dies, she has to stop eating teruma. And so too here, if it was really a problem that he was a kirut shofcha, he was a pesua daka, he became a pesua daka. Then the second he became a pesua daka in the middle of the marriage, she would have to stop altogether. And but we don't say that. So therefore, you see, is the fact that he is a pesua daka that permits her, and not just because she was able to from before. Rava says, no, this is not similar at all. In that case, once there is, when death happens, the marriage is over, right? This is one of the ways of ending marriage, get or mita. And so therefore, he does not acquire her anymore. And it's because the wife, is not his acquisition, she cannot eat teruma. So it breaks the marriage altogether. Whereas whereas in the case that you talked about, Abaye, where they were married and becomes kirut shofcha, they're still married, and so you could still say that she is his kinyan, and that's why the continuous case is in fact completely different from the case where he died, and that's why I don't like your analogy. All right, so now we know why they each chose the answer that they chose. All right, so now we're going to go back to that Rabbi Hoshaia that we mentioned, Gufa. Rabbi Yochanan once went to Rabbi Hoshaia and asked him the following question: Pesua daka kohen shenasa bat gerim. Okay, this is a little bit more complicated than the cases we've been seeing before, because here we have this guy has a problem in that he's a kohen and pesua daka, so he cannot marry a lot of people. Now now we're not talking about kiddushin. We're not talking about in between state of kiddushin, just full marriage. The problem is that she is a bat gerim. So now he cannot marry her potentially on two counts. Number one, Pitsua Daka is not allowed to marry anybody, any Jew. And so we have to deal with the question of, well, the fact that she is a bat gerim, does that make her, is she part of Kahal or not part of Kahal? We're not sure. That's going to be subject to machloket. The other problem is that he's a Kohen. And there's another question whether a Kohen can marry a bat gerim. Kohen cannot certainly not marry a ger, a convert herself. But if she's only the daughter of a ger, then maybe it's okay. So that's question number two. The third part of the third dimension of this question is the fact that the Kohen and Pesua Daka, it could be that when a Kohen gets a blemish, then he loses his Kiddusha status as a Kohen. Not fully. He can still eat Tirumah, but the prohibition against marrying a Bat Gerim may go away because doesn't have the Kiddusha anymore because he has a blemish. And so that would be another possibility of permitting. So we have three different variables, and we're going to have to figure out, according to each one, if it would be permitted or prohibited in each of the cases. So that's what this is going to get a bit complicated. And we'll see three different opinions about it. Anyway, this is the complex question of Rabbi Yochanan asked Rabbi Hoshaia. Before we get to the answer, before we get to the answer, we have a fun story. Ishtik velo amar le velo midi. Rabbi Hoshaia was quiet. He did not answer anything. I guess he was stumped, and so he didn't respond to Rabbi Yochanan. In the meantime, after some amount of time, a great person came and asked Rabbi Hoshaia a different question, and Rabbi Hoshaia answered it right away. Who was that other great rabbi? It was Resh Lakish. So, witnessing all this, Amar le Rabbi Yehuda Nasi'ah, this is the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, was watching all this, and he went to Rabbi Hoshaia and he said, Atu Rabbi Yochanan lav gavra rabahu? Is Rabbi Yochanan not a great sage? Only Resh Lakish? How come you answered Resh Lakish's question and you completely ignored Rabbi Yochanan? That was kind of disrespectful. Amar le dekaba minai milita delet la pitre. Rabbi Hoshaia says, no, it was not. I didn't mean any disrespect at all. He asked me a question that I have no answer to. There is no resolution to this question. So he stumped me, and I was just quiet, thinking about if I could find some kind of resolution. That's why I didn't answer. Okay, now Rabbi Hoshaia, that's it. He ended it without a resolution, but the Gemara is going to explore different possibilities and is, in fact, going to have a final answer to this, according to three different opinions. So now we're asking about that very question that he asked. Within whose opinion was he asking? Because we're going to see some extreme opinions. Rabbi Yehuda, who says for sure it's no good. Rabbi Yosef says for sure it's good. So we're looking for a third Tana who we have a question about. So here we go. Within Rabbi Yehuda, whether we take the side that a Kohen who has a blemish, Pesua Daka Kohen, does he continue in his Kiddushta status as a Kohen and cannot marry Bat Gerim? Or does he lose his Kohen status and now can marry a Bat Gerim? Either way, the marriage will be prohibited according to Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore she cannot eat teruma. Let's explain. If he remains as a kohen and cannot marry a bat gerim, it's going to be bad. Bat ger zachar kebat halal zachar, because Rabbi Yehuda is the one that says that the child of a ger, who's someone whose father is a ger, is no good and cannot marry a kohen. So here is the three-way machloket that is going to be important for us. The question is the status of a daughter of a convert or of converts to marry a kohen. Is it permitted or not? A kohen cannot marry a convert, but how about the daughter of one? Rabbi Yehuda is the most strict. That's why he's in red. That says if a father converted, cannot marry, even if the mother is Jewish. Rabbi Eliezer, who we'll see last, says if both parents are converts, then their daughter cannot marry a Kohen. But if any one of them is born Jewish, it's okay. Rabbi Yosef is the most lenient and says there's no problem of a second generation. Even if both parents were converted, the daughter is allowed to marry a Kohen. Okay, so regarding Rabbi Yehuda, if we say that this this Kohen, even though he is Pitzua Daka, he retains his status as a Kohen, so then, just like he can't marry a convert, he cannot marry the daughter of a father who is converted, and so therefore, this marriage will be prohibited. And even if he does not retain his holy status, and then therefore the gerut would not be a problem. Lo achlad hamirinan kehal gerim ikri kohen. Nevertheless, gerut would come up in a different way because of the Pitzua Daka problem. Because Rabbi Yehuda happens to be the one who is also strict in this case, and he says that converts are part of the kahal. They're 100% part of Jewish, which is generally good for them. But in this case, is not good because it means since he is Pesua Daka, Kohen or not, cannot marry anyone who is part of kahal, and that includes converts. So you see, according to Rabbi Yehuda, in either way, this guy is stuck as a Kohen, as a Pesua Daka, cannot marry this woman. And so, for sure, for him, there's no question to be asked. This is a prohibited marriage, and cannot eat teruma. Okay, so how about let's try Rabbi Yosef? Rabbi Yosef, ben bikdushateka ben la bikdushateka achla. According to Rabbi Yosef, it's permitted. This marriage is permitted in either situation. If you say bikdushateka achla, if you say that a kohen who is a pesua daka, even though he has this blemish, he retains his status as a kohen to the extent that he cannot marry converts. There would still be okay to be Yosef. Dahamad af ger shenasa giyoret bito keshera likuna. Even a convert who married another convert, a man and woman, both converted and married each other, their child is fine, can marry a kohen. So therefore, there's no problem in terms of his kahanut. in marrying this bat giyoret, bat ger. And if we follow the other opinion that says that a Kohen loses his status as a Kohen because he's Pesua Daka, Kachle, still he can have a eat, and there's no problem of Pesua Daka, because Rabbi says of the opinion the Ha'amar Kahal Gerim lo ikre Kahal. He says that Gerim and their children are not called part of Kahal, so he lowers the status of converts a bit. But that is helpful in this case, because that would mean that in terms of being a Pesua Daka, that she's not called Kahal, so he can marry her. And so, according to the Bioseh, there is no problem, no matter what, because he is the most lenient. So that can't be the question either that Rabbi Yochanan asked, because this would be obvious. He must have asked a difficult question. Ela liba dehai tana. Rather, must be another tana, ditnan, which we have in Mishnah Bikurim, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer. Isha bat kerim lo tinaseh lekeuna an shetehe imah miYisrael. So Rabbi Eliezer is the middle opinion here, and he says that a woman who is a daughter of Gerim cannot marry a Kohen unless her mother was born Jewish. Rashi explains that he must be adding to the previous opinion that of Rabbi Yehuda, that says if the mother is Jewish, it's fine, and he's adding that if the father is Jewish, also fine, one or the other. Only if both converted he cannot marry, but either father or mother are okay. And therefore, in this case, as a Kohen, so in this case, as a Kohen, there's not a problem, because the Kohen can marry this case where only the father is a convert and the mother is Jewish, so he wouldn't have a problem here. But we are not sure what Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says regarding the Pesua Daka prohibition. What does he consider converts as part of Kahal and prohibited, or not part of Kahal and permitted? That we don't know. Kashrut mitofsa ba ve'achla. So in fact that she does have a Jewish mother, so that will add kashrut, meaning that it's okay for her to marry a Kohen, right? Is that all? And vachlan, so she can eat, and there's no problem of she's not part of Kahal, so there's therefore she can eat, and the marriage is totally fine. Or dilma kiddusha mitofsa ba ve'lo achla. Or do we say that the fact that her mother is Yisrael, and in any case, we're going to see the inclusion from a pasuk in a second. Or do we say that this bat gerim, is in fact not only permitted to a kohen, but his full kedusha is fully like a Yisrael, meaning she is part of Kahal. And if she is part of Kahal, then any Pesua Daka cannot marry her, and therefore the marriage is prohibited, and she cannot eat teruma. That is the question, and that is the question that Rabbi Yochanan addressed to Rabbi Hoshaia, and which he did not have an answer to. But luckily, we do have an answer, although we didn't know it at first. Tashema, ki ata Rabbi Acha bar Chinena midaroma. Rabbi Acha came from the south, matnita bideh, and he came with a gift in his hand. The gift is a baraita that we didn't know before and that he knew. And the baraita addresses this explicitly. Minayin lebesua daka kohen shenasa bat gerim shema achila bitruma shene'emar vekohen ki yikne nefesh kinyan kaspo vegomer yochal bo. So first about this pasuk that they're quoting from Vayikra, the vegomed here is strange because there's only one word that they're alighting, which is the word vehu. If a kohen should acquire someone like a slave, then hu yochal bo, he can eat teruma. So how did this happen that you have a vegomer instead of vehu? What must have happened is and you can see this in the manuscripts, the original manuscript just quotes a little bit of the pasuk, and then someone said vego, right, and etc. And then someone else continued and added the last part of the pasuk because it's relevant. Yochal bo, you want to know this person can eat them, can eat it. Okay, either it happened that way. Actually, there could be another way that it was left in this way. Either the manuscripts don't have the full pasuk, but it could be that vegos, since it says the word vehu, actually we are applying this pasuk to a woman, so maybe that's why, because we're going to apply the vehu to a vehi. Or in any case, the point is that the question is, how do you know that Pesua Daka, who is a kohen, and married bat gerim, that's exactly our case, that she can eat teruma, is permitted? And the answer is kohen kikine nefesh. Seems to be the derivation is from this word nefesh that comes to include a case, and we decide is coming to include this case, and this is a kinyan, and the kinyan is permitted, and therefore she can eat teruma. So that is our solution. According to Rabbi Eliezer, yes, it would be permitted. And now this baraita that he brought, let's analyze it. Whose opinion is the following? Liman. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it doesn't matter whether he retains the status of Kohen and cannot marry Gerim, or he loses status and can marry Gerim. Doesn't matter. We saw all the possibilities, and Rabbi Yehuda is very strict in the cases of Gerim and Pesua Daka, and so therefore he would for sure not permit. According to Rabbi Yosef, it's just obvious from all of his opinions that no matter what you say about the Kohen status, whether because he's Pesua Daka, he remains Kiddusha or not, doesn't matter, he'll be allowed to eat either way. Rather, it must be that this baraita is according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and coming to teach us that according to him, we learned that when that this bat gerim is permitted to a kohen, so that's the kashrut itosfaba, but she did not become kadosh. The word kadosh is being used in two different senses here. And now it means she does not become kadosh to be part of kahal. No, she does not. She's not part of kahal, and therefore a pesua daka can marry her. And so both problems are resolved. The fact that he's a kohen and the fact that he's pesua daka are both not problems for marrying this bat gerim. And therefore, since the marriage is permitted, she can eat teruma shema mina, and we do have a resolution to this case that stumped Rabbi Hoshaia. Okay, Amud Bet is going to be short, and a different but somewhat related question. Itmar, Rav Amar yesh chupa lifsulot, u'Shmuel Amar en chupa lifsulot. We're dealing with chupa. So chupa nowadays we know after you do kiddushin, then you have the chuppah, which is technically the four poles with something on top. But really, in the olden days, in times of the Talmud, the chuppah was more substantial. It was a small home that, or a tent or a canopy that was built, and the couple would sleep there for 7 days. And it was private enough that it was they could have intimacy together. So it would be more like the equivalent today of the yichud room, or something like that. All right. So now the chuppah is what actually consummates the marriage, right? Before that is only kiddushin. Now the chuppah, it can consummate even if they don't actually have bi'ah, right? As long as it's possible that they have bi'ah there, so they are private in his domain that they now share. That will be the chuppah. Okay. According to most opinions. All right, here is the question now. Let's say you have a situation that there is a kohen who's marrying someone he's not allowed to marry. Maybe she is a divorcee. Let's say she's also a bat kohen. So bat kohen, while she was growing up, she could eat teruma. She married and divorced, and she can continue eating teruma back in her father's house. That's totally fine. She cannot marry a kohen after the divorce, but she's okay. Now let's say this woman goes and does chuppah without kiddushin. What does that mean? Chuppah without kiddushin does not work. The marriage will not be effective. Nevertheless, if they just go and jump, this kohen takes this divorcee and does chuppah with her, since we say in a regular case of marriage that the chuppah effectuates as if they consummated, even if they didn't actually have bi'ah, so do we say in this case also that if a kohen just does bi'ah with a divorcee, also that will be a problem, and she will be prohibited from eating terumah, even if she is a bat kohen. And so, do we say in this case that by taking her into a chuppah, this yichud, even without kiddushin, we consider it as if they had bi'ah, and therefore she becomes pesula and cannot eat terumah anymore? Or that's Rav's opinion. Yesh chuppah lifsulot, but Shmuel says no. There's no chuppah. The chuppah is nothing. There was no kiddushin beforehand, so this chuppah is meaningless. They didn't actually have bi'ah, so just because of yichud, that's not going to be anything. All right, and so Shmuel is lenient. Okay, that's the question. Now, Amar Shmuel. ומודה לי אבא בתינוקת פחותה מבת 3 שנים ויום אחד, הואיל ואין לה ביאה, אין לה חופה. Shmuel says, although we disagree, we do agree in one subcase. Abba, Rav's full name was Rav Abba. We call him Rav for short, but Shmuel, who was his contemporary, called him Abba by his first name. Okay, so Rav would agree with me in a child, a small child who is less than 3 years old and 1 day, because en la bi'ah, en la chuppah, there is no possibility of performing bi'ah with someone who is with a girl who's less than 3 years old. Because she is not developed enough that act, even if you would do some kind of act, is not considered a sexual act at all because she's so young. Now, I know most of us are thinking, 4 years old isn't really any better. Neither is 9 or 15. But nevertheless, in the halacha, an act that's less than 3 years old is not even considered an act at all. Older than that is considered a sexual act. It may be very well be prohibited and have other problems, but the question is it a valid act or not? So, because someone under 3 years old cannot perform bi'ah at all, therefore, even Rav would agree that there's no chuppah. Because the whole point is that if they have yichud together, there is a possibility that they had bi'ah. So therefore, we consider it as if it's bi'ah. Yeah, but that only makes sense if there is, in fact, a possibility that there could be an act of bi'ah. But since this 2-year-old is no possibility, therefore, chuppah will not make her pesula going forward, and if she is a bat kohen, she can continue eating that terumah. All right, assuming that their relationship is prohibited for some other reason, even if their relationship was prohibited for some other reason. Okay, Amarava. Now, this following up on that, Afanan nami tanen. Rava says, I have a proof for this that bi'ah for anyone under 3 years old is not considered bi'ah. Here's the braita. Bat 3 shanim v'yom echad mitkadeshet bebi'ah. So he says anyone who's 3 years old and 1 day and up, there, if a man comes and he does bi'ah with this for 3 and up, then that bi'ah is considered an act and the kiddushin is valid. Okay. And if it was a case of where she is a yevama and she's older than 3, and the Yavam has bi'ah with her, then the boom takes effect. And if she is, 4 years old or whatever, 9 years old, and she is married, and someone else who she's not married to has bi'ah with her, that bi'ah is considered eshet. He would be liable to eshet ish. She wouldn't be, because she would still, if she's still a minor under 12. And if she is zava or nida, then she causes also the man who has bi'ah with her to become tameh to that same level, that just like a nida and zava, not only things that they touch or become tameh, they sit on something, then even the lower cushion, the tachton, becomes tameh like the cushion that they're sitting on, and that type of tumah transfers even to the man, because that we consider that bi'ah a bi'ah. Niset lekohen ochelet bitruma. If this girl who's 3 years old in a day and up, then and she marries a Kohen, then she can start eating teruma, because the marriage is a marriage. And if someone who is with her who she's prohibited from being with, then she has to stop eating teruma. Also, she was a bat kohen and marries in some situation. Also, she got divorced, and now another kohen comes and does bi'ah with her. That bi'ah is considered an act, and therefore she will need to stop eating teruma. Okay, that's the end of the braita. Well, what do we infer from this? Bat shalosh shanim v'yom echad hud mipasla bebi'ah mipasla bechupa. Ha pechuta mibat shalosh shanim v'yom echad delo mipasla bebi'ah lo mipasla name bechupa shema'mina. So we can infer from this, since the Baraita says that someone who's 3 years old in one day and older, in all those cases, if it's a prohibited relationship, all these relations are problematic because they were talking about minors, but in a different sense, are they technically valid or not? Also, if it's a prohibited relation, and she was a bat kohen, she has to stop eating teruma, and that's only if it's older than 3 years old and a day. And so in those cases also, mipasla be'chupa. So in those cases also, in the original machloket about Rav and Shemuel, which was when you skip kiddushin and you just do chuppah, so it'd be the same thing, because chuppah, according to Rav, is like you did bi'ah, because there's a possibility that they were yichud, so they could have done bi'ah, so therefore we consider it yes, and therefore she would, if it's a prohibited relationship, the woman would have to stop eating teruma. So if that's true regarding bi'ah, it's also true regarding chuppah according to Rav. But if she is under 3 years old in one day, where bi'ah does not work, that's not defined as bi'ah. Therefore, since there is no possibility of bi'ah, the chuppah also would not work and would not make her prohibited from eating teruma, and even according to Rav, Shema Mina, and so that's simply Rav's proof for Shemuel's statement that even Rav would agree with me in a girl less than 3 years old. All right, and this will take us into the next daf, which will be reading this machloket Rav and Shemuel that we just mentioned in the background of the machloket of our Mishnah, and seeing how they relate to each other. Baruch Adonai L'olam, Amen v'Amen.